My name is Eleanor Scully, and I'm the head of the Langley School. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon for this webinar. We're going to spend about 30 minutes talking a little bit about our school and some of the research that is coming to the fore now in the field of education that influences how we think about our work here at Langley. Some of you may be familiar with our school and have had a chance to visit our website. Others of you, this might be the first time you've heard of us. So this is designed to be a broad overview with the hope that it will spark your curiosity and perhaps you'll reach out to our admission staff or come visit us. As I said, I'm Elinor Scully. I'm the head of school, and I am an educator who has spent all of her career in the greater Washington, D.C. area as an educator. I was at St. Stephen's and St. Agnes School for 13 years, at National Cathedral School for Girls for 8, and I am starting my 3rd year as the head of Langley. Our agenda for today is really pretty straightforward, and we're going to have some time, hopefully at the end, depending on the flow of our conversation, to take questions. So if you have a question, there is a function through the webinar where you can type in a question, and if we have time, I'll answer some questions. If not, we'll be sure that someone from our admission office gets back to you and answers any specific questions you might have about our school. But our agenda for the afternoon is to just spend a little time looking at what the research in the field of education is telling us about best practices, particularly in the preschool through 8th grade educational context, which is where we are at Langley. I want to talk to you a little bit about Langley's arc of development and achievement, which is how we think about how our curriculum responds to and meets the needs of diverse students, and then a little bit about the values that we live here at the school community that align to our not only our mission, but our sense of community and how we think about welcoming families into the school more broadly. So let's start just by my offering you a snapshot as to what Langley is and where we're situated. Langley is a preschool through 8th grade coeducational school in McLean, Virginia. We are preschool through 8th grade quite intentionally and by design, and I'll talk about that a little bit throughout the course of the webinar. Right now, this academic year, 50% of our students are girls and 50% of our students are boys. We have an approximate 7-to-1 teacher ratio, which means that when you factor in the specialists and some of the wider range of staff members and faculty members we have in the school community, a student throughout the course of his or her day really does get a lot of one-on-one attention, not only from their lead classroom teacher, but also from a variety of specialists. 38% of the students and families in this school community identify as diverse in some way, and so we're very proud of that because we want our school community to be as reflective as possible of the greater Washington, D.C. area. And then just generally, philosophically, I would describe our school as being very teacher, student, and parent-centered. We believe that the partnership between parents and schools and the engagement of their children is one of the most foundational and important relationships that you can forge during the preschool through 8th grade years. And I'll talk a little bit about how that comes to life at Langley. But before we go into Langley's program more specifically, I thought it might be useful to spend some time thinking about what the research in the field of education is telling us about best practices. One of the things that we are blessed by in this day and age is that there are truly wonderful graduate schools of education throughout the country and wonderful universities that are doing quite a bit of research in the area of brain research and cognitive neuroscience. And so we know quite a bit about how students learn and about how to design programs that respond to their needs. We also know a lot more than we did 15 or 20 years ago about the range of types of learners that we have in our school communities and how we tailor instruction to those students. The most recent burgeoning area of research, however, is in an area of study related to the social and emotional development of students. One of the things that has excited me about this research is the fact that Langley School and many schools have known for a long time the importance of social and emotional factors in a child's life, but now there's research to really explain and unpack for us why social and emotional learning is so central to a child's success and ultimate achievement in life. One of the most recent studies was one that originated through a project known as the Fast Track Project that offered a 20-year retrospective study of students actually from kindergarten through young adulthood. And the purpose of the study was to see if there were competencies that kindergartners exhibited when they were 5 years old that could consistently and significantly predict how they would do later in life. And so this study, obviously long in scope, looked at certain competencies that kindergartners exhibited to see if that correlated to success. And what we found was that students who exhibited certain competencies in the social and emotional realm, the ability to offer their opinions assertively but respectfully, to collaborate with others, to share, to resolve conflicts peacefully and productively, to regulate their emotions, to participate positively and respectfully in group play and group context, those skills actually correlated with achievement later in life. Students who were more able to do these things positively correlated to school. They stayed in school longer. They had fulfilling and meaningful employment. They avoided some of the negative social behaviors associated with experimentation with alcohol and drugs. They stayed away from the criminal justice system, and they had a stronger factors related to mental health and happiness. So obviously, a lot of us, this was intuitive to many of us, that students that did well in the kindergarten classroom were probably more likely to meet with success in later life. Now there's data that really shows that, and they track these students through their young adulthood. This data was reproduced not only in the United States, but in other countries, and really has made the case, I think, for the field of education that it's not enough for schools to focus exclusively on academic achievement and the rigors of an academic program, but indeed one of the most powerful and cost-effective things we can do to help students develop is to provide them opportunities to develop these core social and emotional strengths around areas of self-management, self-awareness, social awareness, strengths that are necessary for students to fully benefit from their education and to be productive citizens. And now we know that those are skills that can be taught, that schools can develop a program, a core curriculum around these competencies, teach them to young students, and help them become really second nature. And in doing so, we're really ensuring that they are successful later in their life. And so for us at Langley, this has been a powerful part of how we've thought about how we structure our academic and co-curricular programs, because we don't see this as something you have to choose between. We actually think good schools can do both. They can have rigorous academic preparation and give students 21st century skills that are necessary for academic success, all the while bolstering their social and emotional capacities to ensure that they're successful in those domains. Another area of research that has been quite compelling for me as an educational leader is the work of a Harvard professor named Richard Weisbord. Richard's work has focused on the moral development of children. And what Rick did was interview families and study the habits of strong family dynamics and interview young children about issues related to moral goodness and ethical behavior. And what Rick found was that in today's world, parents seem to worry a lot about their children's happiness and their success and their achievement, sometimes at the expense of helping them to develop skills related to empathy and collaboration and respect that are really the bedrock of moral goodness. One of the most compelling parts of Dr. Weisbord's research is this idea that when children were asked what was most important in the minds of their parents, they ranked moral goodness low on the list, but success and high achievement high on the list. And I think what we know is that parents, as the primary educators of children, and schools as the secondary educators, need to help kids develop the motivation to do good in the world, to make decisions, to really care for and be respectful of their peers in ways that will foster the kind of learning environment where all children can be successful. And schools really have to partner with parents to make this an explicit goal and outcome of what they do. So this book, The Parents We Mean to Be, is a summary of Dr. Weisbord's research, and really helps parents understand why paying attention to a child's emerging sense of moral compass and ethical behavior related to the treatment of others is such a foundational skill. And it's something at Langley we prioritize, again, in this realm of social and emotional learning, that children get really concrete and specific training in how to develop these skills around empathy and respect, so that we position them to be able to be successful no matter where they go once they graduate. Another part of today's webinar is to spend just a little bit of time exploring Langley's arc of development and achievement. And this is the phrase we use to summarize how we think about the structure of our academic program and the goals and mission of what we hope to accomplish with students when they are with us. In this slide, you see a picture of an 8th grade boy walking across a bridge with a kindergartner. At Langley, we have a kindergartner buddy program where an 8th grader is matched with a kindergartner throughout the course of the year to offer mentoring and support and friendship and to give older students an opportunity to explore their leadership and their mentoring capacity and give younger students a role model, someone to look up to. These little, this image of this young child and this older student really gives a visual representation of what our arc of development and achievement is all about. We admit students when they are in preschool, so they are 3 years old, many of them, when they come to us for the first time, and they graduate at the end of 8th grade. During that time that they are with us, they are going through probably the most dynamic part of their development cognitively, socially, and emotionally. If you think of the difference between a 3-year-old and, say, a 5-year-old, or a 3-year-old and a 12-year-old. It's huge, the amount of growth and development that's happening. At Langley, we position all of our resources toward this particular arc. So we hire adults who are very passionate and interested in working with children along that arc. We use our professional development resources to drill into some of the cognitive tasks that happen in primary school or elementary school so that we have expert teachers who know about all kinds of developmental milestones related to this arc. So a 2nd grade teacher at the Langley School has huge expertise in that arc of 2nd grade. What does a 2nd grader experience when they come to Langley School in terms of their literacy capacity? Where are they in terms of their mathematical reasoning and their logical reasoning? And what kinds of supports do they need throughout that time of their development? The other piece of the arc is to really recognize that not all children develop at the same rate and in the same way. So there are moments where a child has a huge growth spurt and they need their teachers to scaffold their learning for them and to ensure that they are being challenged and pushed in that moment of growth. But there are also moments when they may experience a setback. They may have a moment where they struggle with something and the teachers are prepared and ready to provide remediation or to support that child through that glitch in their learning. And we do that because we recognize that there is no more dynamic a time in a child's development than these formative years of preschool through middle school. And we want to have a learning environment where teachers come to us with a deep commitment to those particular years and to that trajectory of development. And so our arc, we recognize, for instance, that the arc of development between a 9th grader and a senior in high school is pretty steep. But it really doesn't, it's not nearly as dynamic as what happens when a child is with us for preschool all the way through 8th grade. So for us, this arc of development is our bread and butter. We attract teachers who are passionate about that particular stage of learning and expertise. And as a result, all of the things we design at the school are geared toward understanding where children are on that arc. So our sports program is all about where middle school athletes are at that stage of their development. It also means our performing arts program, our major production and plays for the year feature middle school students in lead roles. It means that our service learning program is designed to give moments of outreach and exposure in the community that are right for a 6th grader versus an 8th grader. And it also means that all of the leadership roles culminate for those 7th and 8th graders, so they are actually running the school. And it gives them, frankly, a kind of maturity, a kind of presence that they wouldn't have if high schoolers were around. So a couple of things happen along this arc. Students are attended to in appropriately scaffolded developmental ways, but they are also nurtured to be sort of the top dogs at the end of middle school. And that causes them to have a posture and a sense of who they are, a sense of self-efficacy that is really different than if high schoolers were around. And all of our curricular decisions and co-curricular decisions are driven by a sort of deep and nuanced understanding of these pivotal years. So I want to spend a little time talking about our values and how these values find expression in all of the educational decisions we make along the way. So for example, one of our lived values is that childhood isn't just a stage to pass through, it's actually the whole point. I think in a culture where parents get so much, are bombarded really with messages about their child's achievement and their futures, we sometimes lose sight of the fact of how precious childhood is. It is one of the most exciting and dynamic times in a young person's life, and it shouldn't be rushed, and it shouldn't be bypassed in service of other goals. And at Langley, we recognize that childhood is a joyful time of self-expression, of dynamic learning, and we really want to make sure that that the young people that come to us aren't rushed through their childhood, that they appreciate it, that parents savor it because it goes by in the blink of an eye, and it's something that we really attend to in a very dynamic way. Another important lived value is what I was talking about a little bit earlier with this research on social and emotional learning. At Langley School, what distinguishes us, I think, in the educational landscape of the greater Washington, D.C. area is our commitment and priority to tend to a child's social and emotional growth, not as an addition or a supplement to their intellectual and academic program, but actually as a way to ensure that they achieve their full capability. We now know that children who are strong in areas of social and emotional competence have the bandwidth cognitively to reach their academic potential. They're not managing anxiety about where they fit or what's going on in the lunchroom. They're not worried about some of the social dynamics that come up as a normal part of growing up. They know how to manage that. And so when they step into a math classroom or they head to social studies, they're bringing the full power of their intellectual capability to that discussion and to that subject. And as a result, they really thrive. So at Langley, we see tending to a child's social and emotional growth as an inherent part of what we do to ensure their intellectual growth and achievement. And they are not sort of false dichotomies or false choices. They're all part of a complete package and picture. Another lived value for us is that we recognize that growth, true growth in any area of life, means taking a risk and stepping outside of your comfort zone. You don't get better at something if you never take a chance on something. So we create an environment and community where children are encouraged to take sensible and meaningful risks. Not the kind that are dangerous and get them into trouble, but the kind that push them appropriately outside of their comfort zone and allow them to grow. And sometimes that means they're successful, and sometimes that means they're not. I was talking with a student just the other day, an 8th grade student who was talking about the fact that she made the decision last year at the end of her 7th grade year to run for student council president, and she did not win. But out of the mouths of a wise young pre-adolescent, she said, you know, Dr. Scully, it wasn't so much the outcome. It was that I screwed up my courage and I made my campaign posters and I wrote a speech and I stood up in front of my entire grade and made the speech. For me, that was the victory. Even though I didn't end up winning, I never thought I could do that. I was terrified. I was so worried if I lost, I'd be crushed. And it turned out just fine, and I'm getting involved in some other activities, and it's actually A-okay with me. Well, that's exactly what we want for young people. We want them to be able to have a moment where they step out and try something, and it doesn't work out as planned, and that's not the end of the world, that they pick themselves up and dust themselves off, and they're on to the next. Those moments of success and failure, those moments of risk and assertion are what stretch us to be our best selves. And so a community that creates those moments for kids intentionally and thinks about how to nudge them down those paths is one that is going to bring out the best in every student. And not every student is going to run for office, but some of them are going to try out for the play. Some of them are going to say, you know what, I don't want to be front and center. I want to run the lights and do the set design backstage. The job of a school community is to know the children well enough to nudge them in a direction of an activity or an experience that will help them explore some part of themselves that they haven't previously thought about. And that's a big part of how we structure our community life at this school. We also believe that early adolescence, those years of 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, which so many people say they wouldn't revisit if you paid them, are actually very important years, because it's for the first time when you're starting to move into adolescence and start to define for yourself who you are and what you believe in. And so we believe at Langley School that early adolescence really deserves a special attention and focus, that there are certain things that happen during this time in your life, their daily discoveries and joyful celebrations that are really unique to those early adolescent years, and they should not be overlooked. They shouldn't be survived, and they shouldn't be sandwiched between other sort of developmental milestones. So by virtue of having a school that culminates in 8th grade, we're really celebrating 8th graders. We're celebrating the people they are at that age of their development. That's kind of our final product. And so middle school is really our capstone. It is the younger students in our lower school look forward to when they are middle schoolers and they can go on our eco trip at the beginning of 8th grade, when we send the entire 8th grade to Costa Rica to do a week-long in-depth study of biodiversity, sustainability, environmentalism, and leadership in a foreign country. We know our 8th graders are up to that, and when we put a challenge like that before them, they're so ready to assume that leadership. And in some ways, when they come back from that trip, they've grown up. They're more mature than when they got on the plane the week before to embark on such a journey. So for us, those years of 6th, 7th, and 8th grade are really a big part of what we're working toward, and we want to ensure that those years are celebrated and not dreaded, and that they are understood and really plumbed for all of the richness that comes from that emerging sense of adolescence and who a person is. So because our graduates are 8th graders, we are looking for particular qualities. A portrait of a Langley graduate includes the following kinds of characteristics. We believe by scaffolding a program around this particular arc that culminates at 8th grade, we graduate uncommonly optimistic, grounded, poised, kind learners and thinkers. That they are sheltered just enough from that early rush of high school to really be thoughtful about who they are, what matters to them, what they believe in, what they hope for their future. And there's a kind of maturity that comes with that that is pretty refreshing. They're self-aware and they're self-defined. The self-awareness comes from a program that helps them explore the full capacities that they possess and the full richness of who they are. And they're self-defined because at the end of 8th grade, they make an affirmative choice with their parents to decide where they want to go to high school. They decide what is next for them in their intellectual journey, and they work with their parents and our teachers to find a high school that is a best fit for them. A lot of parents, I think, are nervous about this. And wrongly so, because I think our 8th graders are the best spokespeople I've seen for what this experience gives them. It gives them an opportunity to go on a high school interview, to imagine whether they want to be in a boarding school or a day school. It allows them to think about what kind of co-curricular program do they want. Do they want to be in a religious school? Do they want to be in a non-denominational school? Do they want to be in a single-gender school, or do they want to be in a co-ed environment? It gives them a powerful social reset, an opportunity to make new friends and embark on a high school experience that allows them to have a clean slate and begin anew, while retaining friendships for many of them that began in preschool. So they go to high school retaining this wonderful network of Langley friendships, ready to make new friendships. Parents leave Langley with a whole network of adult friends that have helped them raise their children, and then they embark on high school with a fresh set of eyes and a real hunger and appreciation to take advantage of all that this high school experience offers. They're willing to try new things and take risks. They're not thrown or afraid that going into a new social environment is going to be hard. They actually embrace it, and they look forward to all that will offer them. And finally, we have so much data to suggest that they're just thriving in top high schools locally, and even some have gone as far as California and to boarding school, and they just do beautifully. So obviously, we are persuaded that this model works, and it yields a graduate with a particular kind of perspective. So before we wrap up, I hope you've heard in what I've shared this idea that at Langley School we believe passionately that if you get the foundation right, anything and everything is possible for your child. By investing in these early years, both intellectually and social and emotionally, you are giving your child a gift, really. You're giving them a platform from which they can go anywhere. And you're also recognizing that you can't pick a school for a 3 or 4-year-old that might meet all of their needs all the way through high school. So you're giving them a rich foundational experience at Langley that sets them up to ask profound questions about what high school should be about and ultimately what college should be about. So we want to get to know you. We know that in a webinar of this length, it's impossible to kind of cover every aspect of a school that has this much to offer. So we are hoping these webinars will entice you to spend a little time on our website, to reach out and come visit us in person. There's something really different about being on a campus and seeing children and meeting people face to face. So our next admission information session is on October the 28th for about an hour and a half from 9 to 10:30. You'll have a chance to meet my admissions team. You'll meet me and many, many other dynamic educators here at Langley, and we would love the opportunity to show you around and to sort of bring this experience to life. You can also call our admission office and schedule a tour. We find that one of the best ways to get a feel for a place, that's sort of in the gut feeling, is just to walk around and see what's happening at lunch and get a sense for what recess looks like, and to pop into a classroom and see a lesson underway. So again, we hope that these are ways that you might find your way to us and learn more. More than anything, we believe that an on-campus experience is what's going to offer you the best view into who we are. So I'm going to see if there are questions that I can potentially answer. Some have come in. There have been a couple related to the application process. So what we encourage is for you to come and visit us. You can make an inquiry. The first thing you should do is reach out to our admission office so that we can send you a packet of information. We can encourage you to come on campus and spend some time visiting us and take a tour. Come to an info session. Obviously, there is a formal application whereby you actually apply. We solicit some testing, but the admission office can walk you through that entire process. And I think it's just what's most vital is that you have an opportunity to be on campus and to learn more about the various stages. Another question that I've received has to do with parent involvement. One of the things that Langley is probably most proud of is that we are a school that had cooperative roots. We, in the very early years of Langley School, it was founded by a group of parents who really wanted to be in partnership with each other in raising children. So essentially what that means is we invite parents into the life of the school from the moment that they said you enroll. We have a number of ways that you can get involved. Our Parents Association of the Langley School, the acronym PALS, has hundreds of ways parents can volunteer. We run a very well-scoped and defined parent education series. We try to get parents to volunteer in the classroom or on field trips. We know that the best thing for a child is when the child's school and parent are cooperating, are aligned in their values, and trying to support the child's development. So that's a big part of who we are. A question just came in about how can we access this webinar later? Someone's wife wasn't able to sign on, and you found it helpful and you would like to share it with your wife. We will, we're assuming we're collecting everyone's email address, and so we can reach out to you. We're learning our way. We think we've recorded this webinar, and what we'd like to be able to do is offer it to families who weren't able to sign on or had technical difficulties, to offer you a recorded version of this. So again, the admission office will be reaching out, and if you're interested in having a copy of this, we'll try to make that available. One of the questions is about the math program and our math curriculum, and that's a terrific question because one of the things that we find is that parents are very, very interested in the math program. The webinar participant asked if we use Singapore math. We do not use the Singapore math curriculum in our lower school. However, the program we do use embodies a lot of the philosophical tenets of Singapore math. And what that is this idea that we believe that students need a deep conceptual knowledge of mathematical concepts and the ability to use problem solving and deep logical reasoning to solve sophisticated math problems. And so it is the goal of our math program is the ability of a student to understand at a very sophisticated level at whatever stage, whether they're in kindergarten or whether they're an 8th grader, the foundational principles of mathematical reasoning, and to be able to transfer those to novel situations. So this is getting beyond surface math instruction. It's getting beyond rote memorization and regurgitation. It really is ensuring that mathematical instruction embeds in a young person the problem-solving and logical reasoning skills to understand math at a pretty sophisticated and nuanced level, with the idea that going deep will allow them to transfer their knowledge to a variety of contexts. So I am aware that we're running low on time, and I think that we've answered most of the questions. One last question that came in had to do with entry points. And one of the things that we are proud of at Langley is that we do not necessarily construct our admission process as having traditional entry points. So we accept students in every grade if they're a match and if we have space. That's not always the case, but what we always say to families is you should apply. We recognize that not all schools work out, so it's really vital that if you're interested that you apply. If we have space in 3rd grade and your child meets our admission criteria, we're absolutely going to welcome your family into 3rd grade, because we want to build a community of diverse learners who are able to do this program, who will enrich and benefit from our educational philosophy. One parent just wrote in, do we have performing arts and arts opportunities? Oh my gosh, I wish I had another 30 minutes to walk you through that. We have extraordinary performing arts opportunities. We have a beautiful state-of-the-art theater that I would put up against most high school theaters. We have kids that do every aspect of the production, from set design to makeup to sound. We have student directors. We have visual art studios in all of our divisions that allow kids to do three-dimensional art. We have an art show in the spring that brings together all of the artwork from students as young as primary school all the way through high school. So we have obviously musical opportunities through band and strings, and performing arts opportunities. Students do public speaking, and we have visual arts opportunities as well. So it's really robust. We know that one of the hard challenges public schools are facing sometimes is to cut back on these resources, and we feel very lucky that we're able to have robust offerings. And we believe that it cognitively is so important for students to explore artistic aspects of their development all along the way. So we're constantly opening doors for students in the areas of arts. So as you can probably sense, I could go on and on. But we would love to have you to campus. And as I said, if you're interested in accessing some of this webinar material, we think we have successfully recorded this webinar and we'll make it available to you. But if not, there are lots of other ways we can get you to our campus. Thank you so much for participating. I know life is busy, and taking 30 minutes out of your day to get to know us is really a pleasure. So we look forward to seeing you at Langley very soon. Thanks for signing in.